Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, these are sponsors, these are companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies, and I really recommend that you check them out. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit each one of these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our friends at Home Campus, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results, or especially student athlete eligibility and clearance. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day. Go to homecampus.com to get started. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. I used Huddle as a football coach, but as an AD, I made sure we were a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos and our parents love the streaming, but there's so much more. Join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Go to snapraise.com. We used it with great success in our school. Our coaches and parents just loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's snapraise.com. We want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Without a doubt, probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. You know, your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content to celebrate their accomplishments and promote your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Whether it's a social media post to celebrate a big win or an entire newsletter sharing all the great things your program is doing, the team at Gipper is going to have you creating world-class content in seconds. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online, and also allows you to complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. That's the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays, concerts, dances, even graduation. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a small group that just wants to gripe. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that support your program. And having that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're talking to a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of the Educational AD Podcast. We're doing a little bit of time traveling. We're going all the way back to season one, and one of my very good friends, Stacey Segal, is back with us. Stacey was on the very first season. I can truly say she helped us, kick off the podcast. It became the books, and so my thanks to her. If you're new to the podcast world, Stacey is a certified master athletic administrator. She has a tremendous background in athletics as a college coach, as a high school AD, and now she is the athletic director at the Ann and Nate Levine Academy, and that's in Dallas, Texas. We're going to hear all about her journey, but Stacey Segal, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thanks, Jake. I'm really, really happy to be here, and it's great to see a smile, especially coming off the NIAAA National Conference. So great to see you again.
Oh, absolutely. Right back at you. I think we met virtually first because it was all during COVID that we kicked things off. And then it took maybe one or two national conferences before we were finally able to meet in person. But yeah, always great to hang out with you and all of our friends from Texas. Let's go and jump right in. As you know, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up.
Sure.
Take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Stacey Segal origin story?
Right, up to those college days. Well, this is year 30, number one for education. But I grew up in Bryan, Texas. Um, right at that time, it was Bryan because College Station was still kind of a dot. But now most of you will know it as College Station or Aggie Land. So I'm a homegrown Aggie. Graduated from Bryan High School and was fortunate to earn a softball scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. And decided that family is important, and so I that following year transferred back to A&M and had an opportunity to graduate from Texas A&M University. For all you Aggies out there, whoop! Um, was a proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie softball team. Played softball at Texas A&M and finished up there with the degree from Texas A&M. So that was kind of leading up to those college days as well as far as my undergraduate is concerned.
Now, I'm a lot older than you. So I want to go back to, growing up. When you were in high school, um, was there any sort of let's say tug of war pressure between like your volleyball coach, your basketball coach? Oh no, you shouldn't be playing softball, you should be doing this year round. Was the year round thing a thing back when you were in high school?
Not as much as it was this year. Obviously, I mean, Bryan, we graduated with about 550 kids in our class. And so we were one of the larger high schools, I would say, at that time. At that time in Bryan, there was only one high school. Now there's multiple. The same thing with Consolidated. It was A&M Consolidated in College Station. So we were the two rival high schools. But what I remember for the most part is those students that were volleyball players were basketball players, and then, multi-sport, three-sport athletes. And I'm actually good friends with a friend that I grew up, I guess, playing basketball with, and she holding out, I think, a cross country state record, even from the shot put from track and field. And so I do not think at all at that time was there a tug of war. Your quarterback was your closer, possibly on the baseball team. Many of your basketball players ran cross country to get in shape. So I don't see that there was that specialization. I was not a specialized athlete. It was really kind of unheard of. That's what you did.
Right. Now, I've got a follow up to that. From a coaching standpoint, we talk about specialized athletes. Nowadays, it seems like our coaches are also specialized. I still remember 100 years ago, the head football coach was the assistant track coach. The head baseball coach was the quarterback coach for football and did JV basketball. The head basketball coach was the freshman football coach. What was it like for you in high school? Was it that kind of setup, or did you have, I just coach volleyball, I just coach basketball, I just coach softball?
Well, in high school, I actually only played basketball and golf. And
Mhm.
so, but I do remember, our volleyball coach was the large track and field coach as well. Same type of situation where you'd have the assistant football coach and they'd be the assistant basketball coach. Ideally wanting to put those coaches in front of as many kids as you can and to build those relationships. And so, growing up, And even earlier into my career, if you were going to coach, you were going to coach multiple sports. And your kids were going to be a part of that. And that was really kind of part of that stipend incentive piece with it. And from my perspective, it was an expectation even for that second sport coach to still have some knowledge, even of that second sport, versus just being that placeholder, which I know some students have come across, just, you know, giving a coach another opportunity to coach a sport without any knowledge.
Right. No, absolutely. And I still remember before I retired, if I was interviewing a head coach, one of my
Mhm.
questions would be, well, geez, you're great at X, Y, Z. I love it, but what other sports would you feel comfortable helping out with? And it was like,
100%.
well, what? I'm not helping out. Sometimes that might
Right.
keep him from getting hired. Let's go and jump to college.
Sure.
Going from high school to college, it's always a new experience. And so these are my words, not yours. Were you the hotshot freshman that came in when you got to college, or were you battling to, make the travel team? What are your memories of becoming a college student athlete?
Well, again, we're a little bit older, so the generation was a little bit different. And so, no, absolutely was not the hotshot athlete, but I believe that I had a phenomenal work ethic. And so back in the day, I played in this, when you think about softball nationally and you're thinking about A&M or even OU at that time, now OU even with their dynasty, it was an opportunity. I earned a softball scholarship there. I redshirted, wanting to redshirt my freshman year, didn't have that opportunity. So I transferred back home, and in '89, but in '88, A&M won the national championship. But I grew up around Aggie softball within that. But no, I did not have the opportunity to play, I think, every at bat, every until really my junior year. So I embraced the role, which is also not seen now as much as a pinch runner, as a pinch hitter. I loved it, and I compared myself to that, to be able to, like I said, at that time, to come off a bench, even in my early freshman year and sophomore year, to have that one at bat that really can make a difference, and understand really that was a different mindset for kids. Obviously, my junior year, I think, though, it helped me develop as an athlete of being that true role player and embracing it, to really then help develop my skills to become an everyday player, really my junior and senior years at A&M.
Now, I'm going to guess that those types of experiences, having that work ethic, being the role player, developing into an everyday player, probably helped a little bit when you got into your coaching career because you could identify with all of those players on your roster. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement. You learn a little patience. You learn to continue, like never give up, that perseverance factor of, look, I can get better, but these are the steps that I knew need to be able to do so. And if, I wanted that opportunity, that I knew that I had that background for that perseverance, just to keep going and to keep practicing. And then again, to learn how to communicate, which I was terrified of my college coach, as I think many kids were at that time. And terrified. And so not until after I really graduated from college was I able to sit down and say, I was scared of you. But these are some of the questions that I had within that. And had I learned, I think at that time during my college opportunity and career, to be able to have that one-on-one constructive, one-on-one feedback coach conversation with my coach, I think things would have been a little different. But I do think that it helped. I would think from a work ethic of just never giving up.
Oh, I love it. You just did a perfect job. We didn't rehearse this of opening the door for my next question, but we're going to take a quick break. Our guest today is Stacey Segal, Certified Master Athletic Administrator and the Director of Athletics at the Ann and Nate Levine Academy in Dallas, Texas. We're taking that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is one of those platforms you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results, communication. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it. Go to homecampus.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD podcast. Stacey, you were sharing that at the time, you were kind of intimidated by your college coach. Can you look back, and maybe it was travel ball or high school or even your college coach, that whether it was, good or bad, intimidating or not, that, they were part of the reason that you became a coach and ultimately became an AD? Who were some of your influences from a career standpoint?
I would think to start with that, I'd have to go back really to my travel ball years, obviously growing up before I went off, and that was Sonny McLennan. And Sonny was our local softball guru in Bryan, Texas, and had at that time a travel ball. And travel ball was really just starting out, where you had a team and you stayed on the team all 4 years. It wasn't all this jumping forth from one team to the other. And we practiced actually in Brenham. So I drove about an hour and a half to a practice on a Sunday, and we practiced like 6 to 7 hours a day because people drove in from all over the place. But I would say, Sonny, even really first day, I remember just him looking me in the eye, and I think, I don't know, 14, 15 at that time. And it was, nobody, none of the other coaches, Stacey, think that you should be a part of this team. And I remember that vividly. Your skill's not where it needs to be. And I remember that, but this is what we're going to do. And so, he was transparent, he was honest. He pretty much laid it on the line to said, this is where your skill set is. This is how you're going to get better, and this is how I'm going to help you. And I think just from day one, he never gave up on me. He was so hard, but then he also understood that he wasn't afraid to come back up to me and, put his hand on my shoulder and just say, hey, look, it's going to be okay. And so I think he was very constructive. And so I would say Sonny McLennan, number one, is the first person 100% that comes to mind, especially as a youth playing at the next level. From as far as being an athletic director, I felt like it's really an opportunity that I love softball so much, and how could I give back? And so I did have the opportunity to coach overseas for about 9 or 10 years. And I had a colleague, his name was Johnny Jones. Um, and just an old war veteran who we just told stories. But again, he was about family and family first. And he said, look, if you want to get involved and go to the next level, move past your coaching and get into athletic administration. And so I believed in that and kind of took that route. And then honestly, Jake, I would say athletic journey as far as really growing as an athletic director didn't really start until 20 years into my career. And you'll hear a couple of names again as you hear this, but I found my passion and love really for this position and what we do in this craft through the NIAAA. And so Annette Scoggin, my dear friend, was just inducted into the NIAAA Hall of Fame. Really, one of my colleagues in Dallas pulled me under a wing and said, let's go. And I didn't know really what I was getting into. And it was the best experience of my life. And so, I would say right there, those three from a youth, really to get into athletic administration, and then more so just what can we do to continue to grow. And so I'm fortunate to have a strong group of colleagues that, aren't first timer ADs. They just threw me into the group that were all the Hall of Famers. And, I felt like it sometimes I was walking around like a little puppy following them, but the best people, the best advice. I was terrified, but you know what? It was my job just to jump in. And that's kind of what I did. I said, I'm going to be a part of this. I'm not going to be afraid to ask questions. I'm going to invite myself to come sit at your table. And that's kind of what we did. So very, very fortunate to those mentors and dear, dear, dear colleagues.
Yeah, a couple of things. That is such a great lesson for our listeners, whether it's a young AD or a veteran AD, is the importance of building your network. And you just said it. I'm going to sit down at your table. That's what you have to do. Go introduce yourself. I was reluctant to do that early in my career. I didn't want
Absolutely.
it to appear like I didn't know an answer, and I didn't want to look like I was a dope. And I was a dope because I didn't go introduce myself. So good for you. Um, You started out post college, as you mentioned, coaching collegiate softball before you got into the athletic director world. Um, what's some things from those early coaching years that stick out for you that maybe you still use today, or they were lessons learned as you became an athletic administrator?
I mean, I think first to start with is that you really never can over communicate. I think that was really number one, the first lesson. Going a little farther, even being a teacher first, is that not only do we have to adapt to our students in the classroom, you also have to adapt to your coaching staff. And I say that because I was a young AD who had some older ADs that were on my staff or older coaches on my staff, and I could not assume that they knew how to use even text messages way back then, or even check your emails once a day, or even how at that time turn on the computer. And you know where I'm going with this. And so I do think again is that you really did have to make adjustments with your coaching staff to adapt to them and serve them. So don't expect them always to adapt to you. This is the only way I'm going to communicate. I really stepped back and said, look, if you need paper, then we're going to use paper. If we're going to walk through an app, then we're going to walk through an app. Um, Other than that, we really talked about, data and how important data is in our world. And that means everything from, you can't just say, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. We've got to document everything. And so that was working on a handbook. And what did that look like? What is a handbook? What's it for? Why does it protect you? And so I think that those are really some early lessons. And then I think my final and probably my favorite one is I learned that you shouldn't just meet to meet. If you're going to meet and you're going to have a conversation and you're going to, network with your friends and colleagues, that's fantastic. But my opinion is, especially now since COVID, even younger, is that there's a lot of that information that can be shared through an email, especially if you're just reading an agenda. So every time that you did meet or you do meet as a staff, to really make an effort for there to be some professional growth. Out of those meetings, even if it's for 15 to 20 minutes versus just coming in and reading from an agenda. This is da 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 da, because you can read it on paper. So
Boy, those are all great ideas. You need to save some of those for the toolbox. It's of I don't know, I'm going to say it's funny. It's not funny. It's funny you should mention Annette Scoggin. As I got to know each of you over the years, and it seemed like it was always separate. You two remind me of each other so much. Just your mannerisms, a little bit about the look, but that's funny that she is one of your connections. Very cool. Let's go and take another quick break. Again, for our listeners, Stacey is a longtime athletic director in the state of Texas. She recently accepted a position at her current school. And so I'm excited to hear share how all that happened and some of the things that she's already really proud of at the Ann and Nate Levine Academy in Dallas. So let's take that break. But when we come back, we're going to continue our visit with Stacey Segal on the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at my school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it was easy to use. And, oh, by the way, it worked. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's snapraise.com. We also want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. And we want to thank our good friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world class content in seconds, whether it's a social media post celebrating a big win or an entire newsletter that's sharing all the great things your program is offering. The folks at Gipper will have you creating world class content in seconds. It's so easy, even I can do it. That's Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's Gipper.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD podcast. Stacey, as I shared, you were an athletic administrator for a number of years. You took a short break from the AD world, but now you're back, and we're glad you're back. How did you end up at your current school? And tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Well, I'm excited to be back, as we said. So this is year 30. You know, never intended to leave athletic administration, but this opportunity I did. I stepped out in 21 and was fortunate to become a part of the Dallas Sports Commission, which was an incredible opportunity, and still have the opportunity to do a little bit of contract work and volunteer work with them, and really what they bring, grassroots recruiting nonprofit large scale events to the city of Dallas for economic impact, and being a sports enthusiast and advocate, having the opportunity to really grow relationships with volunteer program, Mayor's Youth Sports Ticket Program, and really the Dallas Regional Spelling Bee. And so I wasn't looking to come back at that time. I love it there, and dear friend Monica Paul, the executive director. But I saw a posting because I was actually mentoring a colleague who was actually looking for an athletic director job, and um, I saw it pop up on Indeed as we had our kind of one-on-one weekly meetings, of, this is what's happening and where are you looking for, what kind of school, private, public, are you looking for? And so we're actually sitting down having a conversation one-on-one, and we're looking through the portal, and this popped up. And so actually I just said, hey, look, is there any interest of here? I know a little bit more about the position. And she's like, not really. I think I want something a little bit bigger, right? A small private school. And so at Levine Academy, we actually are a middle school, actually pre-K, EC, all the way up through 8th grade, but from an athletic perspective, 5th through 8th grade. And so after our conversation, I actually picked up the phone and called the headmaster and just said, hey, just out of curiosity, I have some colleagues that are looking for a position. Tell me a little bit about it. Well, Tom and I reconnected. And so he's our head of school. My daughter went to Levine Academy when she was in K through 3, so I already had that relationship within there. And so one thing led to another. He said, hey, come take a look at the campus. I'm like, are you sure? But we did, and that was, I think the end of July. I ran an event for the Sports Commission with the World Cup of Softball that ended the 2nd, and I started my first day at Levine on August the 6th. School started the next week. And so at that time, came into a campus which is very, very close to my home, which was very enticing. Obviously, being a Jewish day school, and we observed Shabbat. No games on Friday nights or Saturdays, which was another very enticing because my daughter is a basketball player and she plays Friday nights. But it just, one thing led to another, and it felt like home. The relationships that we built 15 years ago, we're still there from having those relationships with the administration. And so fast forward now into a semester, and that's what kind of brought me here to Levine.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that journey because everybody has, their own
Mhm.
journey. Uh, One of the things that I think athletic directors like to do, maybe more than anything, is to provide professional development for the coaches. But it's also one of those things that it can be challenging to do with schedules and managing the program and even funding and that sort of thing. So I know you've only, been on campus for a while, but what are some things that you'd like to do in the area of professional development that maybe you're planning on doing for your coaches at your school?
Well, to start with, obviously coming into a system where I had to hire quite a few coaches within a week. And obviously, because we're not under the University Interscholastic League or the TAPS, which is Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools, and because we're middle school, I had number one to bring in some coaches. And so, but with that, um, you know, They are still going to be expected to do their CPR, first aid, AED, the sportsmanship videos, and obviously the NFHS classes, which I pretty much said, hey, look, here's over 65 free classes. You pick five. Um, in addition to our mandatory ones. And so for that, first of all, especially with coaches, we have two coaches, actually full-time coaches here on staff. I felt like that um, professional development piece even becomes more important because they're not on this campus day in and day out. And so to start with, I'd say number one, it's really just introducing them to how it can help. And so it started with really the NFHS class on having parent meeting. And so we brought everybody in, kind of went through some of those things for all of our coaches that were creating those parent meetings. This past week, we actually introduced it just a motivational type Monday. Again, don't just sit to get, where it was, let's talk about how we can help our kids. What does it look like from a performance anxiety, which we're dealing with quite a bit with younger student athletes today, as far as those PDs are concerned. At Levine, really within this last semester, we've worked on implemented a student athlete leadership group already. So we have our SALT program working within a month. Started to really focus a little bit more on student recognition. So now we have the student athlete of the week in place. We have our 8th grade recognition. Last night we had a young man, he hit his 100th shot, and I'm doing the clock. And I said, oh, wait a second, welcome. You're now the newest member of the Century Club at Levine Academy. And everyone just kind of looked at me like, what? So we're excited to really start some of these different opportunities with communication and for our kids. And then first and foremost is really starting to develop a little bit more professional development and opportunities of working with our youth. Because we are a smaller school and we only have about 20, 25, 20 to 20 kids in each grade level, of really now pushing the growth and development for first grade, second grade, third graders, because what we've got is what we've got. And so really focusing on then on, how do you communicate that, looking at their practice plans to kind of embed, you know, you can't expect that they know everything. And a lot of times we sometimes just have to slow it down because they don't know that. So that's kind of what's going on here at Levine. And it's been a fun ride and we've got so much more that's coming up.
Oh no, absolutely. Um, I'm putting you on the spot here. So if we have to, we can press pause. Um, it's an athletic director can have 1,000 great ideas, but if they're not getting support from whether it's a principal, a head of school, a headmaster, superintendent, those plans probably aren't going to come to fruition. Um, how do you feel your school, not naming any names, but how do you feel that your school supports the mission of a successful athletic program, helps to create a successful school?
I think that they're extremely supportive and they have been since the day I walked in the door. Things aren't going to happen overnight. And I think that, again, that's another tool for a new AD is that you can't expect everything to change within the first 30 minutes. So really it is creating that strategic plan. What are your steps as we kind of get through there of growth? And so ultimately, I feel like I've been in a situation where because it's been, in my opinion, about a team, not really a program, where I'm real like I'm trying to grow the program of saying these are the things that we really need to be successful. And I've had their support 100%. You know, and I'm not about this, how can we help our kids? How can our kids grow? For me, it's all about giving our students opportunities. And if we can provide multiple opportunities for our kids to be successful, we know that that's going to translate and run over as an extension of the classroom, because that's ultimately who we are and what we do. I feel like I have their 100% support. And I feel like now the community's really kind of jumped on board as well, because they're seeing the experiences really that their students are having the opportunity to, and even some of the younger ones to say, wait a second, you're starting pickleball? Yes, we're starting pickleball, next month. And that's something brand new that, why not? Why can't we? And so for me, I do feel like our administration has been extremely supportive. And I look forward to, what that looks like from a growth perspective over the next couple of years.
Boy, you got me fired up. I'm ready to come down there and coach for you. Um, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but
Okay.
if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, or as we said, add you to their network, and listeners, you got a tremendous resource here. What's the best way that they can get a hold of Stacey Segal?
Sure. I'd say, first of all, I'd start with email, and it's ssiegel@levineacademy.org. That is my email address here. I'm also never afraid to connect on LinkedIn. I use it very, very well, and you should be able to follow me there. I don't know my LinkedIn address off the top of my head, but to me, I think that that's probably the best place to reach me if you're not going to reach me by email within that. And if you connect via LinkedIn, I'm happy to share my cell phone because I think conversations are very important one-on-one as well.
Yeah. And for our NIAAA members, or listeners, Stacy's also available through the NIAAA membership portal. So
100%.
let's go and take another quick break, but we're coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd also like to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or a cool way to show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. They're also great ways to showcase your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Whether it's a wall mount or a console, you really need to check these products out. Vital Signs Wall of Fame. We also want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, my assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio University program, and it was great. It was very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while he was completing his master's degree, he also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To find out more, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. And we'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And if you go to hometownticketing.com, their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for your athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every account is assigned a dedicated client success manager that provides hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com for more information. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Stacy, we get a lot of new ADs and some younger ADs that listen, and I think it's important for them to hear about the journey that we take with our state association and with the NIAAA. So, can you share a little bit? How did you first find out about the Texas Association, which I know is just huge, and also share a little bit about your NIAAA experience?
I think, again, I think my experience is a little different because I think, many states have different ways to connect with their ADs. But in Texas particularly, I would say most of the athletic directors that really attend those Texas high school AD associations um, are more so at the UIL level at that time. And really were at the district level. And so honestly, when I was at the campus level as a AD, I was very familiar with Texas High School Coaches Association, but I was not very connected at that time with the AD Association. So I spent most of my time with Texas High School Coaches and then obviously our Girls Coaches Association at that time as well. And so, but when I made the move to central office at that time, as far as assistant AD in Dallas, was introduced to the Texas High School AD Association. And I do believe 100% that our region, which is Region 3, has some of the strongest athletic directors that are actually in the state of Texas with that. And so I attended my first AD conference and I learned again, and what a great opportunity to network, meet new vendors, learn a little bit more about the way things are run in Texas, whether it was through professional development. And then, as I mentioned earlier on the podcast, Within that, was introduced to the NIAAA way back in 2014. Um, and so with that being said, really kind of spent more time originally at that time for me personally at the national level getting involved, and then starting to get more involved at the state level as well. And so at the state level, had the opportunity to serve as one of the NIAAA liaisons to read some of the rewards for the Kovaleski certificate, the Student Athlete Scholarship Awards. That had the opportunity to be a part of that, to read some of those scholarship applications, which was phenomenal. And then really, like I said, when I jumped into the NIAAA, we were very, very fortunate, as I mentioned, Annette and team, to be the recipient at that time of some grants that were applied for us through the NIAAA. And so came to Dallas, taught a couple classes, and then I was hooked. And so from that moment forth was within those grants, had the opportunity to attend my first AD conference, and that was in Orlando. I think way back when. And so when we did that, as I mentioned before, I just kind of dove in again with my mentors. And so I applied to serve on committees. I applied to teach LTI classes within that. I was a coach's education committee within that. So I took my CAA test. Really, really quickly, I took a lot of classes to earn my CMAA, but realized that, hey, that's not enough for me. And so at that time, as I mentioned, I was fortunate to serve on the coaches education committee up to vice chair, and then stepped away when I left education the first time. Taught 640, which was a role at that time, the role of an urban athletic administrator at the national level for quite some times. And then COVID year, I got the guts and actually ran for secretary at that time for the NIAAA, but had to do my speech virtually. So, and lost to a phenomenal individual as well in Lauren. And so just really kind of started that journey and really never looked back. And so when I stepped away from athletic administration, I was a little, I think, just sad really, because I had lost my friends and my colleagues as far as what could feed me. But as soon as I took this job, when I interviewed, I pretty much said, look, I'd love to come to Levine, but the first thing that you've got to know is that I'm blocking my calendar because I need to go to the NIAAA National Conference. They never hesitated. And so it was so much fun to be back this past year in December. But now I'm starting over. So I had to submit my committee application again to get back on a committee, and emailed the parties to be hopefully having the opportunity to teach at the national level again. And really just dive back in to truly make a difference in those individuals' lives. So
Well, we're very glad that you're back
thanks.
in the club. You can teach or do a workshop with me anytime. Um, Looking back, as you were starting to take, the LTI courses, um, usually when I ask this question, there's one of two responses, sometimes both. Um, was it, wow, this is really cool stuff. I want to take this back to my school? Or was it, oh my goodness, we're not doing this at all. I better take this back to my school. Do you recall any of those experiences?
100%. You didn't even have to finish the sentence. Number B, wholeheartedly. As I said, I kind of dove into really the whole process. I remember my first conference. I don't think I ever came up for air because I took so many courses in that first semester, and I had no idea what it really meant to sit through a 4-hour professional development. But I think I took 4 that year. And I don't really remember any of it, but when you take those law classes, I came back immediately, just like everybody else, and was like, oh my gosh, we're not doing this or we're not doing that. But then again, you're scared because you're like, wait a second, who do I tell that we're not doing this? And do I say anything? But they really were enlightening. And I think even right now, they're so evolving, are just what's happening in our society and our world are so evolving. And so it's exciting again to now have the opportunity this past year, especially because I was not as involved teaching or on a committee, that I actually got to sit down and go to a class. And so it was really great that I helped co-author. I wrote some information about the diversity class. And so that was a lot of fun to open up the front cover of the LTI LTC book and say, hey, there's your name. So it was it was great just to have the opportunity to learn from those professionals.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And again, for younger listeners or people new to the association, fill out that committee request form. Volunteer to, introduce a speaker, to, take attendance, get involved with the association. Um, for your CMAA project, you've been a CMAA for a number of years now. Can you remember that process and maybe just share quickly, what the topic of your CMAA project was?
Absolutely. So I was actually, I think the last year or the year before that they said you don't have to write the big project. It was now, I think they're online. So it was a 93-page project. I remember vividly, but at that time in Dallas ISD, I oversaw human resources and really what that hiring and evaluating. And so 2 weeks before we started in 2015, there was 206 coaching vacancies. And so my CMA project was really working with the stakeholders through HR, through meetings, through legal to implement dual contracts at that time in Dallas ISD for our coaches. And so that process was really from beginning to really by the time we left of, helping make that effect of hiring and firing and the, evaluation processes within those dual contracts.
Wow, that's an exhaustive topic, but what a great resource. Boy, that is very cool. I'm not surprised at all. Okay, of course,
Thank
Stacey
you.
Segal. Stacey, this has been great. Spending some time with you. Always great to hang out with you. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director toolbox. Now, almost 4 years ago, you contributed to our very first toolbox, but we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you to do it again to send out a brand new AD on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put three things in it. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, we're going to see what Stacey Segal puts into her new athletic director toolbox. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And having that type of feedback is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with that frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been spending time with our very good friend, Stacey Segal. She's a certified master athletic administrator and has a tremendous background as a coach, as an AD, as a leader. But right now, I'm going to task her with sending out a brand new AD on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put three things in the toolbox. So, Stacey, what three items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Number one, set up a weekly one-on-one meeting with your administration team at the beginning of the year to hold that place on their calendar. Even if you don't have anything to say, set up those calendar meetings right now, one-on-one, and that way you've already put a placeholder on your administrator's calendar. And that way then they can communicate to you to say, okay, hey, we don't have anything to meet about today, but then you don't have to run around a building or a campus or a district to try to block off time for it. It's already there for you to have those one-on-one updates with your admin team. I think that's number one, plain and simple. Find time to communicate. Number two, there are so many resources out there, especially for new ADs, but do not be afraid to use a checklist really to map out month by month. And I say that because a lot of times you just don't really know what that role really entails. And so there are some phenomenal resources month by month of what do you do as an AD from in August to, September to October all the way through a year, and then create your own, because that's what I actually love to do. Is I had one, I was like, we don't do this, we don't do that. It doesn't apply to me. And so I actually created our own that was really geared a little bit more to our building. But then the second part of that is I actually shared it with my administration as well as some of our teachers and parents, because they also helped them understand like these are timelines and they're here for a purpose. So I think that that's really was a great tool for me. And then for me now, especially as I say, like to say a veteran administrator is, I focus a lot on on effective communication with parents. And especially for a young AD who's like, I don't feel like comfortable talking to parents. I don't really have their support. I don't return their calls. I feel like when you build that, parent triangle between coach, student athlete, and parent is very important. And so as a parent, they have rights, and I think being able to build what does that look like? So whether it is through a town hall, whether it's through a coffee conversation, whether it is just kind of an open conversation, to be able to say, hey, every Monday morning we're going to do this. I think that those are some really great things. And then it's on everybody's, but number 4 is you have to find a mentor. And I think that's probably used every single time I tried. That would probably be number 1, but um, absolutely. You've got to be able to find someone that you can bounce ideas off and not be afraid to ask questions. Because this is not an easy job, but I don't even see it as a job. It's incredible to get to come to work every day to serve kids and to do what we love. So.
Well, I love every single one of your tools. After listening to you and knowing you, I'm not surprised at all that those were your top 4. Great stuff. One more time, if one of our listeners want to connect with you and listeners, you could look no further to find a great mentor or connection. What's the best way to get a hold of Stacey Segal?
I'd say S. Segal at levineacademy.org. So that's number 1. Also, you can reach me through LinkedIn. And so if you connect on LinkedIn, I'm actually happy to share my cell phone number within that. And then obviously, again, if you're an NIAAA member and you want to connect, I'm happy to connect through the portal as well.
No, absolutely. Well, Stacey, thanks for sharing with our listeners. All the best moving forward into 2025. We're gonna have to get you back to Florida. Maybe come down this spring for our state conference. We'll take
Hey,
care of
I'm
you.
there.
Yep. Okay.
Just send the invite. I'd love to be there. So.
All right. Well, that's considered done. We'll talk more after we finish recording here. For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories along with best practices. So come back and join us again for the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.